Welcome to the Costello Coaching Podcast, where we talk about developing the human within the athlete. My vision is to enhance people's performance in all aspects of their lives. I hope you enjoy.
And we're back with the Costello Coaching Podcast. I'm Tommy Costello with Dr. Stephen Frueh. Today, we're going to take a complex topic and make it simple. We're going to be talking about the inner voice. Now, what does that even mean? The outer voice, inner voice. Well, you're going to learn. And I was just sharing with Stephen, the way that I visualize and prep for these conversations that I have, as Stephen, as a doctor and 2 PhDs, can make things, he can make it as complex as he wants because he's on a much different intellectual level than the common person. But what we were just discussing is this. I said, as I do this podcast for myself, I visualize that there's 100 athletes in the audience right now. And they're 15 to 25-year-old athletes, male, female, high school, college, professional, that are thirsty to grow as a person. That's who I'm talking to. And then standing up in the back of the room is 100 coaches. And out of the 100 coaches, there's 50 of them that are looking at me cross-eyed. And then there's 50 with open hearts that want to learn. And so for me, that helps me understand who I'm talking to. So some that are thirsty to learn, I got to be very careful to provide them with the information and the facts before I just give them tactical advice and give them useful advice, because they might take it and put it to use. So I got to be very careful with what I share. And Dr. Frueh takes that very personally with when he works with his people that he coaches and works with. The advice can be taken and used. So as the advice giver, you must be very calculated in what advice you give. And then for the 50 coaches that aren't quite sure about what I'm saying, I try to give them enough support and background knowledge so that they can grab that information and do something with it. So I hope that gives you a better grasp of who I'm talking to when I talk on these podcasts and who we're talking to, Stephen, because that's really important.
Yes. You could say a couple of things to what you just said. I could say, I'm really interested not so much in what you know, but what you don't know that you know. I'm really interested in getting behind the persona that we carry around, kind of like the Wizard of Oz got behind the persona of the 3 heroes, the 4 heroes. And, what inner voice is about, what we want to talk a little bit about today is helping you kind of imagine or identify what that reality, that truth inside you is, because it's something that's always working within you. It's something that's always speaking to you. And if you get that much, that there's something speaking to me, but I'm not tuned in, then you got a lot. You say to yourself, why, you remember when you were in the 3rd or 4th or 5th grade and the teacher asked a question, and the snot-nosed little kid 3 aisles over knew the answer and said it, and you said to yourself, I knew the answer. Why didn't I say something? That's a good question. Why didn't I say something? You remember in a family conversation around a dinner table when your brother or your sister rolled their eyes when your mother or your father said something, but you didn't say it out loud, but something in you said, this sucks. This isn't real. Now, that same thing will happen with those 100 coaches. That a coach will say something, he or she can be right on the money, or they can be, as far as you're concerned, out in left field somewhere. Your inner voice, your inner reality says, I don't agree with that. Or, wow, that really hits hard. That's really true. I want to follow that. So you have to know the difference between what you say yes to and what you say no to. And if you can know the difference to what you say no to, you're in touch with the inner voice, because it's made up of a lot of experiences in your life.
So it's really good, because what would you say if you are listening to your inner voice? Would you call that aware of your inner voice if you're listening to it? And then if you're taking action on your inner voice, where does that bring you? That's
a very good observation, because inner voice in itself doesn't have any authority. If you think about it, you're intuiting, you're I got it. You're hunching. It's your intuitive self as well as your learned self. So you're getting stuff. But then to go from that to sitting around the dinner table and saying, Dad, I don't like what you're saying, that's a big step. That takes a personal authority, right? To say to your friend, they says, come on, let's do this or that. I talk with young people about drugs that way. I say, what did your inner voice tell you? Well, my inner voice told me it was dangerous, and I really didn't agree, but they would think I was a nerd or something if I did. Okay, so you heard your inner voice, but you didn't pay attention, and you didn't have the authority, is what I would say, to pay attention. Where does the authority come from?
So when you hear your inner voice, that's good. That's like our gut brain, right?
Yeah.
Similar?
Yeah.
So you hear your inner voice, but then grabbing personal authority would be our way of explaining doing something with your inner voice.
It would be like, I have the right to speak here, even though nobody gives it to me. I have the right of an opinion, even though my boyfriend or my girlfriend doesn't want me to have it.
A lot of times college sports programs are kind of run like dictatorships, at least the ones that I was a part of.
Yes.
And they can be very fear-based. I'm going to show up on time so that I don't get in trouble, rather than saying I'm going to show up on time because showing up on time is the right thing to do.
Yes.
And I'm very conscious of that when I'm building my teams and building my programs, is making sure that standards are held as an enhancement for the athlete, rather than holding standards over people's heads out of fear that something bad will happen to them because if they don't meet the standard or expectation, rather than encouraging them to kind of strive for their goals. And, the term I like to use, strive for your goals, fall to your standards. And that can be confusing, because a lot of times when I was in college playing in sports, I struggled to vocalize what was going on in my inner voice.
Yes, for sure.
You could be aware of it, and then you could go home and complain about it with your friends after, and sit around the dinner table and say, can you believe that coach said that? Can you believe that, this athlete got away with doing that? Can you believe, and we would just brew about it. And it would cause a lot of pain, fear, and anxiety.
And more importantly, it would cause you not to get anywhere with it.
Exactly. There was no gain made.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, and that maybe I needed help with, or a lot of people need help with, is what is the action item you do with those feelings or that inner voice?
Yeah, well, if you can see, like a lot of times bad coaching or bad priesting or bad pastoring or bad any kind of leadership is when I believe that my way is the way that it should be your way, my way or the highway. And the guy Chenard, who founded Patagonia, said this. He said some of the guys would come in the middle of the afternoon because that was their schedule. And he said, we liked that because they would work till 10 or 12 at night. That it didn't matter. Our schedule didn't have to meet their schedule. Their schedule was about what they were good at, comfortable with, and productive with. So the standards that you're talking about have to be personalized in the context, though, of the standards of the coach and the team. That's a very difficult task.
Yeah, because then you're interplaying with caring about the individual.
Yes. Yeah.
When the numbers get big, how do you stay astute to the individual?
Right. How does that happen? You would know more than I would know, because you've been around productive sports teams and you've created some, and you would know what the difference is when the team is all what we call on the same page.
Yeah.
And their individuality isn't the thing. And when the individuality of one person says, wait, Coach Costello, I don't want to do it this way. I want to do it that way. And what do you do with it?
Yeah, you listen.
Yeah.
I listen.
Yeah.
I listen. I really do. And I challenge myself to listen because there's value in what that person is saying. And there's a little alarm going off inside them that causes them to say it. And also not forcing them, but encouraging them to speak out. And something that I consistently tell them is, hey, if I ever instruct you to do something, and I preface every coaching session that I ever had, or anytime I get a new client or team member, I always say this. If I tell you to do something and you don't understand or you question it, you always have the authority to ask why. You always have the authority to ask why. And if I can't answer why, I shouldn't be telling you.
You're giving them permission to be.
I'm giving them permission to be themselves.
Now, in the last podcast, we talked about the psychologist Jung talking about your job is to become the individual you are meant to be. That's what Tommy's talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful tension between the individuality of the athlete and the coaching program or the coaching strategy. And how do those two things interact? That has to do with your authority, with your love, with your genius. It has to do with those kinds of things.
Yeah.
You bring to the team your own genius.
You know, it's really interesting too when you talk about this. It brings up one person in mind in the current coaching space who's, you know, doing it different than everybody in an outsider's view. I don't know him personally, but he's getting results that nobody really gets. And for me, I'm talking about Deion Sanders coaching Colorado football. His approach to me screams that it's greater than football.
Yeah.
And there's no knock on coaches that are purely focused on the football, the X's and O's and all that, and they go out and get results with their training programs and practice plans, and those are all fine and well. That's great. But everything Deion talks about is so much deeper. It's so much deeper. Maybe it's faith-based is the way that he explains it, but it has to do a lot with the inner work of the individual and the commitment to the brotherhood of the team as a human and as a person, and the passion and fire that those individuals share at such a unique point in their life. 18 to 23-year-olds that are in a battle. You know, football's a battle, a physical battle.
Yes.
And he's really utilizing what we would coin inner work to enhance his team's performance.
He's sharing his own inner work.
Yeah.
But he's not calling it that. But he's sharing his own inner work and saying, this is how I imagine it. Not think. Try to make that distinction. Not think about it. It's thinking, for sure. But he's saying, this is the way I imagine how this works. And it's worked for me. And it can work for you. Now, what's the guy next to you mean in that context? What's the change of the way we've always done this into the way we're going to do it? What's that mean for you? And can you let that happen? Can you grow here? Can you experiment here with your athleticism and with your wisdom and with your genius? Can we bring a bunch of geniuses together and have them all communicating with each other for the betterment of the tribe?
So interesting.
Yeah. Because that's what's lacking in our country, in the setting one group up against the other.
Yeah.
We're not saying, what does Biden have to teach? What does Trump have to teach? We're saying Biden's bad or Trump's bad. I'm not political here. I'm just saying, notice the culture that you're in, and there isn't a lot of saying, who are you really?
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. Only way this podcast grows is if it's shared. So please share it with your friends, family, or anyone you feel like it can help enhance their performance in their life. A little karma goes a long way. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah. So Steven's very, very well prepared man. It took me a long time to get him to be open to do the podcast.
Yeah.
Which is great, but he's very thoughtful. He's very astute and aware of his inner voice and wondering, how does the podcast interplay with my work and where I'm at in my life? And, you know, what is it about me that belongs on this podcast?
Yes.
Well, Steven, if you got the chance to go visit his office, he has filing cabinets on filing cabinets of written out work, unpublished work. He has multiple books that he's authored, but he has unpublished work, a lot of work. And so he comes prepared with notes every time we have our podcast, which I love. I do my own preparation, but Steven has his own notes. And there's this bullet point in his notes that I want to share because I think it's really important. You say, your inner voice is a GPS, an ancient gift that uses education but doesn't become a servant to academics. And the reason that I think that's beautiful for our audience is because a lot of times people become servants to the information that they digest, and they neglect their own inner voice. And I actually have a great story about this. I got to do work with a really high-level doctor in neuroscience. Not allowed to share who it is, but he's well known. And he was explaining that when he did work with a marathon runner who was going to break the world record in the marathon, in simple terms, he explained it this way. They had a complex, robust routine that was a macro cycle. So that just means a cycle of training for 6 months, planned out by the day, by the hour for this athlete, so that at the end of the 6-month training session, he would break the record. They did all the science, all the background information on how can we put this athlete in the best position, blood work, nutrition, training, to break the world record of marathon running. Let's design him specific shoes, training routines, and they drafted an unbelievable plan. The man executed this by script. Absolutely by script. He goes and runs it. He doesn't even hit his own PR at the end of the 6 months. So they bring in this neuroscientist, and they say, hey, where did we go wrong? And he said, did you ever ask him what he wanted to do?
Yeah.
And so he sits down with the athlete, and he sits down with him, and he asks him, he goes, so over the 6 months of training, what did you like? What did you not like? And he said, I just didn't really like that they would cut my run so short. Nutrition made sense, the blood work, all the treatment, all made sense. The shoes were great. He said, but I didn't understand why they cut me so short. I like running for distance. And they say, no, that's enough for today. You're done. You need to rest. You're done. And he said, okay, so how far do you want to run? He goes, I like running till I feel like this. I said, okay. And he told them, all right, for the next 90 days, I'm going to take over his training. And they're like, no, we have this plan. This is where we went wrong. He goes, next 90 days, let me take over his training. And all he did that was different, he respected the folks that were creating all the science behind his program. But all he did was ask him what he wanted to do that day and what he felt like doing.
Yes.
I believe, don't quote me, but I believe he beat the record by 12 minutes.
Wow.
The 90 days later.
That's beautiful, yes.
It's 12 or 3. He beat the world record. Yes. That's all I want to say. Yeah. But it was by a significant margin. I think it might have been a 12-minute difference from the one that he ran 90 days prior. But the beautiful thing about that story is it goes to your note. Don't be a slave to the education.
Right.
Listen to your own genius. Listen to your own inner voice. And the results can skyrocket if you can just hear yourself and be astute to yourself.
Yeah. There's a young man I coached last year from a high-end family, very sophisticated family, a lot of education, a lot of money. And he met a girl that his mother liked. And I think I told you this story. And he would use the phrase, she checks all the boxes. And I like that phrase. I never used it in my life, but he used it. And then one day he said, but I can't go any further with her. And I said, why? He said, I don't know. Something's missing. Same thing. There was something missing. He couldn't answer that question, but he couldn't go on with the relationship. The boxes were checked. Her education, her family, her money, her style, her religion, all the boxes were checked except one, his inner gut.
Is it okay to not have the answer?
I would say it has to be.
You know what's interesting about this? And listen to this. This neuroscientist also said this. He said, it was pretty funny. He said, just because someone has a microphone and is on camera and you see them on social media doesn't mean that they're either right, smart, or wrong.
Exactly right. Exactly.
And that's being aware of who you're listening to. And I'm very cautious of that.
Yes.
Just because I have a microphone underneath my mouth and a camera on my face, yeah, I have something worth value to share with people, and I really believe that. But it doesn't make me all-knowing, and it doesn't say that whatever I say someone should listen to.
Yes.
They should come to the product of their own conclusion.
The poet Robert Bly, in front of a couple hundred men, used to say, everything I just said is only half true. Your job is to discover which half.
Beautiful. So you know what's beautiful about us explaining those two things?
Yeah.
What does it teach the listener to do?
Yeah.
Use their own inner voice.
Yes, and use their hunch, their sense of things. You wouldn't have, for example, You wouldn't have date rapes if the person that had the date rape was listening to their inner voice and saying, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
They somehow, the story repeats itself. Well, I thought he or she was a good, it's mostly men to women. I thought he was a good guy. I thought he was. Where was your voice?
Yeah.
What was your instinct saying?
Taking action on your inner voice.
Yeah.
And so for those that are uncomfortable with someone like me or someone like Steven saying we don't have all the answers and what I say might be half true and it's up to you to figure out which half.
Yes.
Beware that those who claim to know it all or be so definitive in their truth, beware of that person.
You bet. You bet.
That hunch, that inner voice, that red flag should be glaring. That alarm should be blasting in your own body, in your own mind. And if you're an athlete and a coach is so definitive in their way and will not listen to what you have to say and is a dictator, listen to yourself. Don't put yourself in a vulnerable situation because you're trying to appease or please someone that's in a place of authority. Always be aware of your own body, your own mind, your own spirit, and listen to your own gut. Even if it has to do with the pressure of a team. Oh, my team needs me. No. You have to do what's best for yourself and understand how doing what's best for yourself is what's best for the team. Because a lot of times that goes misunderstood. And I don't mean to say that you can't be a team person and listen to yourself. 100% being a team member, being a team person, being a part of the tribe is showing up with your best self. That's what it means. You bring the strongest version of yourself to the team because we're only as strong as our weakest link. And if you show up as a weak link, you're going to weaken the team. So it's really important that you listen to your own inner voice in the world of athletics.
That's true. And I don't know how much time we have left, but one added piece is you started with saying 100 coaches and the athletes in the room. So a word to the 100 coaches, if you're a coach listening, probably the most difficult thing that in my limited experience, it's limited. I work in my office and I work with people that are trying to get somewhere like you are. The thing that's missing often is for the coach to say, I don't know how to listen to this 18-year-old. I don't know how to listen to this 22-year-old. I know what I have to say because this is true of me. I know what I have to say. I don't know so easily how to listen to what, for example, Tommy has to say. That's my work, to focus and to focus in, to listen, actually listen.
That is where the work lies.
Yes.
That is where the work lies.
Yes.
And if you're not conscious that that is the fact of where your work lies, become aware. If you hear this, now you can understand that your work as a coach or your work as an athlete is to first listen to yourself and understand, all right, what I'm saying, is this clicking? Or what this person is saying to me, is that really working? And then do something with it.
Yeah, is it resonating in the athlete? Is the athlete saying, uh-huh? Or is the athlete saying, I don't think so, but not saying it out loud? Because there's a big difference in your performance as a coach with whether your athletes are saying, I don't think so, whatever.
How much of that do you think is that looking someone in the eye?
How much of what?
How much of it, meaning how much of it being aware of what your athlete is thinking is looking them in the eye?
Well, that's part of it for sure.
Because I think when I coach, the reason that I say that is when I look these guys in the eye, it tells me everything. If they know what's going on or if they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the way they look at me allows me to say, they got it, or let me follow up with a question, or let me follow up with another statement, or let me follow up. And until I feel like I have that definitive, I got it.
Yeah.
Then I move on.
Yeah. Yeah. In my office in Glendale years ago, I would see families, and a lot of them were referred because of drug abuse. So in my office there, theoretically, there's 5 people. There's a mother, father, and 3 children. And there's a 14-year-old boy. And he's sitting here. And I'm waxing eloquent because I'm full of myself, and I think I know everything. And I'm talking to the mother and the father, and they're talking about the children. But I see the 14-year-old sitting over there getting more and more and more pissed off. And finally I say, hey, Bob, what's going on? He says, I hate when she does that. I said, what? My mom. I hate when she does that. What does what? Well, when my dad was talking, she was wiggling her foot. And she wiggles her foot whenever she thinks he's a fool. But nobody says that out loud. Dad, nobody in this family calls you a fool. But my mom's wiggling her foot says to me, she thinks you're a fool. What do you do with that, Dr. Frueh? I say, you just did something with it.
Yeah.
You pulled the mask off. And the mask has to be pulled off. That comes from the inner voice.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to call people out. It just means that you have to be aware of what's happening. And sometimes you have to take some self-proclamation and proclaim what is happening.
What's happening? Exactly. Let's put words to it.
Let's label what's happening.
Yes. That's what they do in preschool.
Yeah.
When little Tommy and little Lucas are playing in the sandbox, and Lucas takes Tommy's truck. So Tommy reaches over and punches him. And the teacher comes over and says, Tommy, use your words. That's what she meant.
That's beautiful. So we have quite a few episodes coming up.
Yes.
And a lot of work that has taken place in developing these episodes.
Yes.
From Dr. Frueh's end. I'm just here to listen and learn.
It's fun.
But could you just give a quick rundown of what's to come in the near future?
Well, we got to look at authority. I think a good conversation on this podcast is to look at your personal authority, how it got to where it got, and what to do about it now. That's the tease. How did your authority get to be, well, I'm not sure, well, maybe, whatever, that kind of thing. We talked about it last week. Yes, no, maybe. How do you get to your no? That's your personal authority, which opens the way for a powerful yes. And we're going to look with those parts of yourself. We're going to talk a little bit about how I take the parts of myself that have been rejected or abandoned. How do I re-include those into who I am? And I can tell you what they are, because it's a very powerful process over the course of 80 years. We're going to talk about the voice of your body, what your body is always speaking to you about. And most of the time in a highly medicated society, we are taught to not pay attention to the wonderful resource of our body. Whatever it is the body is saying, an upset stomach, a headache, pains between your eyes, whatever it is, there's something in there.
Quick interjection there.
Yeah.
I work with someone at a very, very high level who's unbelievable knowledge and so astute. She's so astute to the spirit. Runs a lot of tests on me. And for me, my own health has a lot to do with responding to what my body is showing up saying.
Yes.
So for example, and this might sound common, but my skin does certain things when I consume certain products. And when I consume dairy products, I get a certain reaction. And I've been tested for this and identified this, but it took self-discipline to take those products out of my body, out of my system. Now, the next level of it is taking caffeine and coffee out of my body. That's really responding poorly with all the work that I'm doing. And I work very hard, and I put a lot of effort and a lot of heart into what I do. And so I'm very in tune with what my body's showing up saying by what I'm giving it. And so I'm shifting right now for myself, not saying that it's the best for everyone, but for me, for my own self, doing the work with this doctor, what I'm doing is I'm removing caffeine, which is tough. I love caffeine. I love energy.
Yes.
Removing caffeine, removing coffee, removing dairy. And what that's going to take is self-discipline.
And you have to ask yourself the meaning. That's another thing we're going to have a podcast around, is what is self and what is discipline? And how do those two concepts happen to come together? What do you mean by discipline? Do you mean abandoning yourself? Do you mean abandoning what you enjoy? What do you mean? That's a big conversation.
Yeah, it is. So anyways, we're going to close.
Okay.
And we are from myself and Steven, I'm speaking for both of us, we're really happy to do this together. And if you could comment or...
Love that. If they could comment. Love it.
If you can comment or message me or DM me on Instagram and let me know what you want to hear more of, we're really happy to talk about that because we are here to serve you and we are here to help you, coach you, and be there for you. So with all the love in the world,
yes,
from myself and Steven, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you benefited from this. Give the show a follow, share it, and comment what you'd like to hear more of so we can help more people perform in all aspects of their lives.